So here we go. So there's 4 in the first couple of lessons in chapter 12 are simply about controlling the timeline. That's what we want to do. So if we start with the start and stop one, you know, they've actually added a couple buttons for us, a stop button and a play button. How do we know where they're buttons? A couple of ways. We can look at the library. We can see that they have a play button and a stop button in here. We can also see that when you click on an instance of either of the buttons, it says in the properties panel that it is a button. You also should notice that they have dedicated a layer to the buttons, and that you only need a keyframe on the first frame, and you just need populated frames for the remainder of the frames. They don't change, they remain constant. Okay? A good habit to get into. Now, they also, remember I said it's a good idea to pretty much isolate just about everything. Notice they have dedicated a layer just for the box, just the graphic box that surrounds the buttons. And, you know, some designers really go overboard. You know, that's a bit much, but it's still not a bad practice to get into, to try to isolate as much as you can things. And then on the bottom layer, they have the frame-by-frame animation. This is one of the things, the first things that we did in this class. Okay? So if I were to play this, if I go ahead and I hit Command, Return, it does just what you might think. It just plays in a loop, and it starts, and it keeps going and going and going, right? Okay, what we want to do is to be able to make sure that these buttons can control the timeline. That's what we're going to do with the ActionScript. So let's look at the end version, and we'll go back and we'll toggle back and forth and rebuild this. So if we look at the end, this is the stop and play final. Notice what they did. They added one layer. So now we have 4 layers, and they have, as I mentioned, they have labeled this one the actions layer. And it doesn't hurt to repeat it, but what you should do when you add ActionScript of any kind, if it's nothing more than simply adding a stop action so that your movie only plays once, or it doesn't play, or it does whatever, then it should reside on its own layer. And it should be the top layer. In order to add an ActionScript to a frame, you need a keyframe. And you'll notice that these are blank keyframes, but they're still keyframes. And what lets you know, the little symbol that lets you know that ActionScript has been applied to these frames, is the little A right above that white dot. So if we were to go back now on either one of these frames, and we were to look at, let me go to Window and bring up Actions, you can see we do have some ActionScript here. Okay, that's assigned to that. Similarly, we can go to the end, and we have even a simpler bit of ActionScript, but it's ActionScript nonetheless. It's been applied. And fortunately for me, this part of the ActionScript is no different for version 2 and 3, because we are covering 3 today. And if there's time after this demonstration, then what I'll do is I will show you how you would do the same thing in 2. 2, I think, is much easier if you do ActionScript 2. And I have the feeling they're going to hold on to it for quite a while, because people like you and me who are not programmers, unless you are a programmer and you're sitting in here, if you're not a programmer and you want to do quite a bit yourself, it is much easier to do. Okay. So let me go ahead and push this under here so I can pop it out with a flyout window. So the first thing that I need to do, if I'm going to apply ActionScript to these buttons, is I need to control the timeline. Instead of it automatically playing, I need to have it stop. So what I'll do, we'll go back here and let's look at the ActionScript. You'll notice at the very start here, they have a stop action. And it's stop, and you have parentheses. Even if there's nothing in there, you have parentheses, and then you have the semicolon. The semicolon is like having a period, so that's the end of your command, basically. So let's go ahead and go back to the other one, my other stop and play, the beginning, and let's do the same thing. I have my buttons layer is my top layer. Well, I need to add a brand new layer to this. And I'm going to name it Actions. Some people just put an A. I like Actions. Really help remind me. Make sure that the keyframe is selected and bring up the Actions panel. And what we can do now is we can put it in by ourselves, okay? Or we can come in here and I can have other options here. I can add a little bit of new ActionScript from here. We can see that there's a lot of things that we can add from here. I mean, it's all the same stuff that you have over here can be added from here. A lot. And we're barely even scratching the surface. So what I'm going to do is write in stop, and just like they did, and then semicolon. Whoops, that's a colon. That wouldn't work. If I want, I can check to make sure that the syntax is correct. And it wouldn't take much. Remember, I accidentally put a colon there instead of a semicolon. So if I check, it says this script contains errors. It lets you know that there is a problem with the syntax. Now, if you don't know to check the difference between a colon and a semicolon, when I'm staring here with my glasses, looking at my screen from here, I don't really see the difference. So I just know that I typed the wrong one in. Okay, there's a semicolon. That looks pretty good, and I can go ahead and I can close, and you'll notice that we see the little A. Okay, so go ahead and we'll hit Command Return, and it does just what we thought. It stops the whole timeline. Now what we need to do is we need to add ActionScript for the buttons. Okay. So what we're going to do is add functions, and then we're going to add event listeners so that the buttons listen for these events, and it will be on mouse click. You don't have to memorize this. All you have to do is, as I explained to Clarita, is that you copy and paste the script that you see in here. When you do something for yourself that mimics what we're doing here, you simply copy and paste the script and make whatever minor modifications that you need. Okay, so let's go back to the final, and let's look at, let me close this, and let's see what they've, I'm going to put it in the same order as them. I would probably begin with a play button, okay, so that it automatically stops. Now we're going to get the button to play, and then we'll see what happens, okay? So let me go back to the ActionScript again on frame 1, and let's look at actions. And lo and behold, they do have a play. So I'm going to do what I told you to do. I'm going to copy and paste. But I'm only going to copy and paste what they have. They first have to define the function. So the function is play movie, and this can be named, this can have whatever name you want, as long as it isn't, well, there are, I won't say anything you want, but darn close. Okay. Then we have to define what play movie is, and it is an event, and it's a mouse event, because we're not putting any data in here when we do this. Like if you were going to design the ActionScript for a calculator or something like that, or a game where there's data that's going to be put in, then this would not be void. Okay, so what this function is play. Just like we had the stop action, this is play. And you have to know, it could be, if you could name it something else. The other one is going to be, function is going to be stop movie. And again, this is a different function that we are naming. And again, it's a mouse event. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the function. And this, and I'm also going to copy the play button. Because in addition to that now, that we've defined the function, we also have to define the ActionScript for the button itself. And the button itself is, we have named play button. And what we're doing is we're adding what is called an event listener. What this does is it listens for that event that we defined up here to happen. When it does, oh, okay, now it's time to react, either to click on the mouse, to drag the mouse, to do something. And we've defined it as a mouse click. Okay? Click, for whatever reason, needs to be capitalized. Mouse event, notice that they're using the camel backing on a number of these, like play movie. The naming for these is very critical in that regard, as for syntax. And then after the mouse event, notice what it puts. It puts the name of the function here, so that when you click on that button and the play button, it says play movie. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy from here to here. I'm going to not do this, because we'll do the stop button in a minute. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and copy, because I'm going to cheat. And then we're going to go back to our start and stop one, and I'm just going to click down here so you can watch me cheat. Now you know how to cheat. Okay? We're just going to paste. Okay? So this should now almost work, because I'm going to go back once again. I'm going to go back to the final. And the other thing that I need to do is I'm going to click on the stop button right now, and I want to look at properties. Remember, any symbol that you create can be used multiple times. So I could have the play button on stage as many times as I wish, and each play button could do something different. It could play something different, right? So we have to specify a name for that instance. So what we're doing, and you'll look down here in the properties panel, notice where they've written play button. So you know back in the ActionScript where it said the name of, that event listener, play button? Well, that's what it's doing. It's looking for this particular button here, this instance of the button named play button. And again, the name of the button, or how you name it, is critical. Try to keep it short, keep it descriptive. Also, in this particular instance, you'll notice that they're using an underscore. So it tells us what it is, it's a button, and it tells us what it's to do. It's a play button. So let's go back over to our start and stop play. I'm going to click on the play button, an instance of it, and down in the instance name, I'm going to name the same thing, play underscore BTN for button. Okay? Now it should work. If I didn't do that, and probably I should do that just to show you, the ActionScript is correct, but it's not going to know what button to affect because I haven't specified the name of an instance for that event listener. So let's go ahead and hit return and play, or return. Now let's click the play button and see if it works. So when I roll over, you get the finger, you get the little rollover effect, and when I click, it plays, but it comes back and it stops. Why does it stop? I told it to play. Think about it. The first piece of ActionScript that I put in that frame was a stop action. And what that does is it prevents the movie from playing, which is a good thing. But in this particular case, unless you want it to stop after playing once, then we have a problem. So this is where the inventiveness comes in. And the only reason I know how to do this is because I have done it for a while, and I've copied from these people for so long that, okay, it makes sense. Okay, think about it. We have a stop action here in our timeline that tells it to stop until we have an event listener, and it clicks and it plays, and then it plays that function, the play. And when it plays, it goes down here, and then by default, it loops. It goes all the way back to frame one, where the first action that it reads is the stop action, and there it stops. So how do we get it to continuously play? Well, what we can do is that we can put down here in frame 10 another ActionScript. So let's go ahead and insert timeline blank keyframe, and now we'll go ahead and in our ActionScript. This is a little bit different now. What I wanted to do is to bypass frame 1 when it gets down here. Now I can have it go anywhere. I can have it go to a particular frame, a particular scene. I can have it do pretty much anything from here. But what I'm going to do here is I want it to go to frame 2 and play. I could have it go to frame 5 and stop, or I could have it, I could have it do any number of things. But in order to get that continuous loop, what I want it to do is to go to frame 2 and stop. So what we do is we have a go to and stop. Whoop, can't spell. Notice the syntax, the go to and stop, how it's written. Why is it that way? It's just, again, you can't have spaces, and this is a command. Now what I'm going to do, instead of just the parentheses that are empty, and I could do that with a semicolon, it doesn't tell it where to stop. But in this particular case now, if I put inside the parentheses, if I put a 2, that stands for frame 2. Boom, okay. Now let's go back, let's close our ActionScript. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to, let me put it back in there. So let's try it again now. Let's go ahead and command, and let's play it again and see if it works, see if I've done it right. Nope, didn't do it. So what did I do wrong? Let's go back down here. Let's look at actions. Let's go ahead here. Go to and play. I'm going to check there. My syntax could be wrong. I could have done it incorrectly. So let's click here. And let's look at actions frame. Go to and play to semicolon. Go to and play. Okay, let's make sure that I typed it correctly. Let's go back to mine here. And let's go back to the actions panel. Oh, I put go to and stop. There you go. It did what I told it to do. Go to frame 2 and stop. I want it to go to and play on frame 2. Okay, there we go. Oops. Now let's test it again. It does what we hoped. It stops. Now when I click on here, it does just that. It bypasses frame 1 and it plays. Now we need to apply the same type of action script for the stop button. We need to name the instance of the stop button. We also, in order to get it to stop, we need to do something very similar. We could actually copy and paste what we did for play, but insert stop instead of play. And instead of naming the instance button play, or a play button, it will be stop button. So we're just interchanging those, and that's it. But the rest, the name of the function, the name of the event listener, pretty much, or how they're structured is the same. So let's go back to frame 1. Let's go ahead and look at actions. And what I'm going to do, let's pull this off, is I'm going to copy again. I'm going to copy the function, and I'm going to copy the play button. Because the syntax and the structure is correct. So I'll go ahead and I'll copy it. I'll hit return. I can hit return once or a couple of times and press. Now, instead of function play movie, we're going to name this function stop movie. Makes sense. S-T-O-P. And what kind of event? It is a mouse event. But in this particular instance, it will be similar to what we have here. It will be, instead of play, this will be to stop. Not at a particular frame. It's going to just stop the whole movie. Now we need to, down here, add an event listener. And also up here, that event, well, similar to what we had here, we're going to add an event listener, but instead of play button, this will be stop button. Otherwise, it will be very confusing. So I'm going to name this one stop button. We're going to add event listener, mouse event click, and this one we're going to put in the function up here, and it will be stop movie. So that's all we're changing. Now I come back to, let's close this. I pulled it off. I'll pop it back in here. Let's go back here. Let's select, and I'm going to name the instance, and it will be stop button. ETN. Okay? And let's cross our fingers and hope everything works. What I should have done, and it wouldn't hurt, is when you come back here and you select on a particular frame, go ahead and click the checkbox. And that's a good sign, but it's not perfect. There could be no errors, and it could still be written incorrectly. How is that possible? It's like spell check. Okay? If I were to start, you know, you're looking great today. And if I typed Y-O-U-R, looking great today, it wouldn't be able to detect that there are any spelling mistakes. But it should be Y-O-U''R-E. That's a similar deal that we have here. But that's still a good sign nonetheless. So now what we're going to do is we're going to test it again. And we're going to click play, let it go through, and it does a great job. Now it stops. It stops right where it was on the timeline. If I wanted to, I could have it stop and go to, or I could have it, you know, go to, I could have a different one. On mouse event or a mouse click, I could have it go to and stop frame 5 or something like that, or I have it go to and stop, you know, on that mouse event, or one of the mouse listener or event listener stop on a particular frame. But I'm just having it stop at whatever point. Okay. So far, so that's controlling the timeline right now. Any questions so far? Yeah.
If you would like to do a pause button, would you use the same stop action?
Yeah, because in yes, you would name it pause, but you would use a stop. You would use the stop action. There is no such thing as a pause in Flash. In other programs, it's very different. There is a stop, and there is a difference between pause, and there is a quit. You can also have it so that actually, when it stops, it actually shuts the whole thing down, which is pretty cool. But in Flash, a stop button is the same as a pause button. So if you had that parallel, you know, those two parallel lines, vertical lines that are the pause, that's what you would do. That's basically what it is. It doesn't quit, it just stops it and pauses it. Okay, now, can everybody copy and paste? Because that's all you need to do. If you just understand that structure, we're in good shape. But now what we need to do is we need to look at our stop and play movie clip. So instead of ActionScript, what if we had, or frame by frame animation, notice that the animation of the snowboarder is placed inside a movie clip now. See, when I selected this, we don't have all of these 10 frames down here. Just by clicking on here, you'll notice that, oh, we have a movie clip down here. And this is the final. And in a similar fashion to using buttons, when we have a stop button, we have to now tell, or a play button, that we want it to stop a particular movie clip now. It's not the entire, it's not the main timeline, it's the timeline of a movie clip whose timeline is independent of the main timeline. So now what we're going to do is we selected the movie clip, and we're going to name that instance so that we can control that particular movie clip. Because what if you had multiple instances of that movie clip and you wanted the button to only control one of them? Or you wanted separate buttons to control each one independently. Does that make sense? Sort of? Okay, well, let's play the original one, and it will look very similar. It's just like the one that we had before. Okay, only they do have a stop action here. It's not affecting anything though. We can go back here and we look at the ActionScript, And it's similar to what we had before. It's almost, I mean, it is. It's identical to what we had before. But it's not stopping the movie clip. Because the movie clip's timeline, as I said, is independent of the main timeline. So let's look and see in the final version what we have to add to this in order to control the instance of the movie clip. So I'm going to go back to this one and look at ActionScript. And let's look at this one. Oh, come on. There we go. So we start with a stop action as we did before. And what we do now is we have function play movie, which is what we had before. Event listener, or event is mouse event, void, because we're not adding any data. But this time, notice what we've done here before the play. We've added the instance of the border, of the name that we assign the border, the snowboard movie clip. It was named border MC. So now it's specifically telling that instance of that movie clip to stop. Similar, we have play button down here, add event list, and the name of the button is the same. Add event listener, mouse event is click, the name of the function is the same, play movie. The only thing we've done differently now is between these curly braces, instead of just play, which tells the main timeline to play, which is what we had in the beginning, we're telling it to play the movie clip. The instance, this particular instance of the movie clip. So let's do it one step at a time. Let's go back to the stop and play. And I'm going to begin by adding the stop action here. So it's already named stop button. But what I need to do now is I need to name the movie clip. So we'll name it border MC. Underscore MC stands for movie clip. And if you do have MC after it, if you're using ActionScript hints, later it will recognize that and it will give you hints. Are hints helpful? Only if you know ActionScript. Otherwise, it's like, again, it's like English. It's like any other language. If you don't understand the language, the hints aren't going to help. So we don't need any more, go to and play, and have that end one over there at the end of the timeline that tells it to skip, because we're controlling the timeline of the movie clip. It automatically loops. So let's go ahead and hope that this plays. So I can go ahead and by default and it doesn't work. So what did I do wrong? Did I add it all yet, or was I too busy talking and not paying attention to what I was doing? I was too busy talking. I only added, let's go back again now. Let's select our action, and let's go back to actions here. And I didn't put it in here, so it didn't control it. So what I need to do now, it doesn't stop it. So instead of stop, we're just going to put border MC. And I'm not even sure of the syntax myself. I can put a space there. Is there a period that goes there? Okay, so we're using, thank you. Dot syntax. What does that mean? You got to read the book because it's syntax. Okay, so but that's the one piece of ActionScript I've added that will change the whole thing now. So let's go back now and close this. And again, it automatically plays. And when I go back here, I can click the stop button and it does stop it. So now it works. I'll do the same for the play button. Now there's one bit that's slightly different. And we would have to go inside the movie clip and change that. And what is the difference that's going to be between this one and the last one? Wait, go ahead, each one. Yeah, well, what it did is, in the last one, the whole thing stopped by default. This one plays from the get-go by default. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to incorporate a movie clip and you have an elegant timeline like this, it's just one frame that controls the whole thing. But you want it to be stopped from the get-go and have the person play it, then what we have to do is go inside the movie clip, and we have to, within its timeline, at the very first frame, we have to add a stop action. And then in the last frame, we have to go to and play frame 2, similar to what we had done before. So it automatically loops, but from the start, it stops. Does that make sense? You want me to do that afterwards so we can compare them? Okay, well, let me go back here and add the ActionScript here. Okay, let's go. I'm going to put this in here too. I'm going to put border MC. Play. And let's select the play button. Make sure that we have that labeled. Hold on. Oh, wrong button. What am I doing here? Okay, there we go. So play button is labeled. Go back again. Have I done everything correctly? Is that it? I'm not so sure. Stop, border, play movie. I think that's all I needed to add. I think I'm good to go. Okay, let me put it back under here. Let's test it again. So stop, play, so it's working. Stop, play. Now, compare this one. So if I hit Command Return, this is how the end user is going to see it. By default, it just automatically loops. And now I have the choice as the end user to stop it or to play it. If we go back and we look at the other one, this just simple start and stop, okay, with our frame-by-frame action in here, and I hit Return Play. It stopped at the beginning. If I want it to look like this, I can do that with the other one, with a movie clip. But this is what I have to do. Let's do this one. Let's make sure that ActionScript is selected and go on here. And I'm going to double click on the movie clip. I hope I am. Is it locked? What have I got going here? There we go. Okay, so now I'm inside the movie clip, and it's similar to what we had before. It's frame-by-frame animation. But now it's contained in the movie clip. So what I'll do, so that it stopped from the beginning, is I have a keyframe on frame 1, and I insert timeline, a blank keyframe on frame 10. On frame 1, we bring up the ActionScript, and I put a stop action. Okay, that's all I need. And then I select frame 10. And this is similar to what I had done before. I'm going to say go to and play, to and play, frame 2, semicolon. Okay? Now let's go back out onto our main timeline, and let's hit test movie. Does just what I thought. Now it's similar to the other one. It stops, but as soon as I click play, it plays, and it bypasses frame 1 and when I want it to stop. But when I open up the movie for the first time, it stopped like the last one. But this ActionScript now to control that timeline is done inside the movie clip. The stop action and the go to and play frame 2. The rest of the button actions, those controls, or as they were before. The only difference is that selecting the instance of the movie clip and naming that instance and putting that before the function play or stop with the dot syntax, the period. Okay? Now, I have to ask you, we do have some time. In the next 20 minutes, do you want to see how I would do this in ActionScript 2? Or does it matter? Or are you content to know this? It might actually hurt you if you know ActionScript 2. It's better that you probably just forget about it and just start with ActionScript 3. Okay. That's all I want to cover today. And I want you to go over, and if you want to go over the definitions of the ActionScript, if you want me to play the lynda.com, I can. What I want to go over Thursday is to cover a slideshow, which is slightly different. It's similar action scripting, but slightly different. It's almost identical, almost. And then that's what we're going to use as a basis for our final slideshow. What I would like you to do, and you can either do frame-by-frame animation or you can do movie clip, is that to get the ball rolling, the whole file for our final project in here is going to be a slideshow. You can make the slideshow whatever size you want. If you want to use the default size, so if I click on the timeline here and I look at, oh, they have a big one here. I don't want that size. Let's go into Modify Document. And the default size is 5, oh shoot, you know, I'm not even sure myself. 550 by 400, is that right? Let me create a new file, and then that will tell me. Let's go brand new. ActionScript 3, and make sure ActionScript 3 is selected. 550 by 400. If you want it 550 by 400, you can. If you wanted a smaller format, maybe half this size, so it's vertical, you can make it that way. What I would recommend that you do is design your buttons, that you just have a forward button and a back button. That's all you need. If you want a go-to button, meaning you could, we'll show you, I will show you on another day, probably not this week, but next week, that there are different kinds of slideshows that you can create. Those slideshows could be that you could have, instead of just a forward button and a backwards button, another type of slideshow would be that you have little thumbnails of the images at the bottom. And instead of clicking on the forward button, what it does, it tells it to go to next frame and stop, or go to previous frame and stop. That's the action scripting that we would be putting in there. This instead would be, for each button, you would assign a different action script, and you'd have to have a different instance for each of those little thumbnails. And when you clicked on it, it would be go to a particular frame, or go to a particular frame label and stop. So it's allowing you to jump around the timeline as opposed to progressively go forwards or progressively go backwards. Yeah, I will. Not this week, but next week. No, one step at a time, so that you can do one that is a slideshow that's literally like a carousel slideshow. You know the old carousel projectors? That when you click it, you can only go forward, 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 or backwards, backwards, backwards. You can't jump around. Remember when you had video, VCRs, you could only, fast forward or fast backwards. And then when DVDs came about, now you can jump around. It's all digital. You don't have to slide forward, slide backward. You can go anywhere you want in the timeline, basically. And that's what we'll be doing here. So the first slideshow will be like the original carousel projector, where you just click on the play button, forward, 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 or backwards, 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 and it goes one at a time. And then the other one that I will show you, and I will give you a template for that you can copy and paste. Just use all the action script that's given to you, but put in a new faceplate so it looks, an interface so it looks different. You can design your buttons differently. But the action script will be the same. It's similar to saying, you know what, I'm going to put 3 televisions in front of you. One's by Sony, one's by Toshiba, one's whatever. Inside, they're fundamentally the same. It's the case that looks different. So what I want you to do is to collect, and you should have been collecting already, your slides. And I want you to have a minimum, maybe 5 slides. More would be better. Try to theme it and design the buttons. You can start by using existing buttons that exist in the library of buttons, and then I want you to modify them to suit your specific theme or interest. And it can be a simple button, it can be a rollover button, it can be an animated button. You can choose to add sound or not add sound. But that's really what you should be working on today and Thursday. Okay? Okay, I should have this posted tonight. I hope the quality, I think the sound quality will certainly be better. I had a rude awakening when I started yesterday with a new video camera. And that the quality is much better, but the file size is much larger too. So I had this beautiful, I mean the sound is beautiful, the quality of the video is beautiful, but instead of having an hour's worth of video under 100 megabytes, it was like 400 megabytes. So to post that on YouTube takes forever to upload. It takes forever to process the movie too. So we'll see. That's the next step now, is that we have better production quality, but I have to tinker with the quality of the video when I compress it for the web.
Because the quality was better, the file size got so
Huh?
Because the quality was better, the file size got so
Yeah, it's like a JPEG file. You know, you can have low quality or high quality. The high quality JPEGs have very little compression. The low quality JPEGs have high compression. And when you have the high compression, there's a degradation in quality of your image. It throws away data. It throws away some of that image in order to be able to compress it. That's why you never JPEG a JPEG. And similar to video, in order to get that compression to download quickly, you know, for the end user, or to maybe to use it with streaming video. Everybody know the difference between streaming video? What streaming video, it starts depending on what you've established is the baud rate. You know, is it a fast internet connection or slow? It immediately starts downloading the video and playing it. And then as it's playing, hopefully it's downloading quicker than it's playing. So you get to see it instantaneously, and hopefully there are no glitches. But oftentimes you'll see when there's the internet gets clogged, or your baud rate of your particular internet connection is slow. It starts to play, then it stops, and it says buffering, you know, and it's catching up, and then it plays again, and then it stops, and it buffers. But hopefully you don't see that. But in order to do that too, you're really compressing the file too. You're designing it so that it's a very small file. But when you do that, then again, there's a degradation in quality. So we'll see. I'll experiment, and the sound will be good, and the video will be pretty good. The question is, how high can I have to try to reach a happy medium. So, because the one that I uploaded last night took 5 hours to save. No, I mean, I didn't have to sit there and watch it, but you know, it takes 5 hours. So. Although that's not true in 3D modeling, where I've had to do that, where there was a project I worked on, and it was very simple. It was it was for Volkswagen, and I needed to turn the Volkswagen logo, you know, for the VW, make it look like glass, so it looked like a glass paperweight with something behind it, and you saw the distortion looked just like glass, and it looked just like the Volkswagen logo. Very simple. I mean, it took me no time at all to model it, but because it was going to be used for print and it was going to be used for multiple purposes, I had to render it at a really large size. So when I scaled it down, it was at 300 pixels per inch for print. So, and this is back several years, at least 8 years, maybe 9 years ago. With my old computer, my old Macintosh, it took like 12 hours to render the thing. So I would have to babysit the thing. I'd have to start the thing during the day, like at noon, and then every hour or so go in. Is it still rendering? Is it looking okay? Because once in a while there would be a glitch and it would crash. And so I couldn't afford to render it at night, which is what most render farms do. Or if you don't have a render farm, you'll start it at night because it'll take so long if it takes 6 hours to render. the individual frame, then what you'll do is you'll start the rendering at night, go home, go to sleep, and then when you come back in the morning, hopefully it's all done and you can look at it and you haven't had to waste any time. But there have been any number of times where that's happened and you've rendered the frame and it crashed and you get nothing. So you lose all that time. So that's babysitting, you know, the fun. So fortunately it worked last night. So, see, with 5 hours. Every time there's an improvement in technology, you get faster processors for your computer, hard drive space is cheaper, RAM is cheaper, then everybody wants better quality. So I've got a better, you know, it's smaller, it's cheaper, it's a better video camera, the sound is better, the image quality is better, frame rate, I mean, I can make it, it's a high definition camera. So that's great. I didn't have that before, but now if you want higher quality, that's a bigger file size. Bigger, you know, takes more processing power to render it, to do whatever. So just,
Well, if you're just walking away from it, what's the difference? I mean, why compress it further? I mean, you're walking away, it's taking 5 hours, but it doesn't matter other than you have to check on
well,
it once in a while. Why try to compress it to get it?
to get a smaller, because it has to do more with the end result. I did it 2 different ways for yesterday's. I did it for high, for example, somebody with a T1 line, a fast baud rate. That took 5 hours. So it's a high quality, but it will require somebody with a fast internet connection to view it, you know, and have a reasonably good experience. The second one I did is only taking an hour and a half to render, or maybe 2 hours to render, but I did it for streaming medium quality. So by doing that, you can have a slow connection or a fast connection. It has more to do with the end user and the experience they're going to have. And then I have to tinker with and see. And I'm going to do it based on, you know, what works here. Because early in the morning when we arrive at 8 o'clock, a little bit before 8, there are not too many people out on the computers. And you have a really fast connection here. And then gradually, you know, everybody's out there clacking away, you know, watching YouTube videos and stuff. And middle of the day, it can creep, you know, down to just snail's pace. It can be extremely slow.
So is it always better to have it as a streaming video? That way if your end user has a low baud rate, that they'll be able
That might be, and that's why I'm testing. I'm going to see. I'm going to compare the two.